Hello, everyone. Welcome to Top of the Hour Research Topic. My name is Moccia. I will be the moderator for today's topic, Create a Winning Poster. This presentation is sponsored by members of the Research Committee. The topic was selected to provide new or reinforced poster presentation pearls to our members for future national or local conferences. During the next 20 minutes, you will hear from our panel of experts, Dr. Joanne Miller, Dr. Sharon Wexler, and Dr. Ann Mitchell. Please chat in your comments and please post your questions in the Q&A feature on Zoom. Dr. Joanne Miller will be our first presenter. Dr. Miller, could you please describe the objectives and the outline for today's presentation?
I'd be pleased to. We're hoping our learners will encourage and enjoy the program, and our purpose is to develop a poster process, look at the common content and layout of posters, and how to attend and present your poster content at a conference. One of the purposes of a poster to look at is, one thing that we've discovered is that many APRN programs do not cover how to present a poster in their programs. And the submission and acceptance of an abstract is in response to a conference call is the beginning of that process. But once your abstract is accepted, you now have to begin the process of developing the presentation, which is usually a poster. This presentation will focus on the development and presentation of our poster once an abstract has been accepted. Why do we do posters? One of the most important things, it's a visual communication tool in an abbreviated manner to show the important work that you've done. It's a way to communicate main points of your work and content from your abstract. It's also a sharing of important information that will impact and improve care. It's part of our professional role, and it's an opportunity for networking. And this opportunity for networking is one of the most fun and rewarding parts of presenting a poster, because this is when you get to actually talk to other people at that conference and network for both your benefit and theirs, to share what you have developed from your abstract and all your work. There are quite a few things about a poster. Some of the positive aspects are this, is that you do get a chance to share your research findings or your project process and results and other significant information. It does force you to be brief and really focus on vital information. It allows a lot of people or several people to look at your information at one time when you're in the conference. It's definitely easier to develop than a full manuscript or a full presentation. And it does allow the presenter to dialogue with the people who have been involved in similar projects or do have the similar interests. There are a few limitations to doing a poster. One of them is it can be only seen by the people that do attend the conference. So we do encourage you, maybe when you get back to your work environment, to see if you can get it posted around in your professional community. It also is only a limited amount of information. It sometimes can be professionally viewed as less important than a presentation, but it is very important, and it does have a cost associated with it. So now I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Sharon Wexler for the next slide.
Okay, I'm going to start out by talking to you about how to get started on your poster. Before you get started on your poster, you have to keep a few things in mind. As Dr. Miller just said, the purpose of your poster is to concisely communicate the key points of your project and study. The important words in that bullet are concise and key points. I like to look at a poster as another way of looking at it is that it's a journal article in a graphic format. Your poster needs to be attractive. It needs to be eye-catching, so people stop and take a look. Next slide, please. So the very first thing that you need to do is review the guidelines. Most guidelines will specify the size of the poster and whether it's going to be hung on a cork board or bulletin board, or whether it will be standing on a table. It's very important to know these things when you are starting to design and create your poster. These details are critically important when you are getting your poster printed. It's also helpful to check the organization that accepted your poster and see if they have a specific template for your poster. Many organizations do. The next thing is to review your budget for poster creation. And depending on that budget will really guide whether you're going to create the entire poster yourself, or whether you're going to take it to a service like an office supply store such as Staples or Office Depot or one of those types of organizations, and have them help you design it. When you look at the call for posters, see if the organization is paying for the poster. Check the organization that you work with. Many organizations do have a budget and will support the creation of your poster. You can create the poster on your computer using multiple PowerPoint slides, or you can create it as one large PowerPoint slide. If you have a limited budget, there are a number of online businesses that print posters for moderate costs. If you're using an online poster printing service, check to see, if you're a student, check to see if there are student rates. Many of these organizations do have student rates. The next important thing to think about is create a schedule. There obviously is a date by when your poster must be ready. Some organizations require you to submit the completed poster ahead of time. GAPNA does not, but many organizations do. It's also important when you're sending your poster out to be printed to find out how long it takes to print the poster. Most places will print it overnight if need be, but often you pay a huge premium for that. So I always like to create a schedule that starts with what date my poster must absolutely be done. If I'm traveling with my poster, then I usually give myself a cushion of 4 or 5 days. So I build that cushion for the mail delivery being late or other types of unplanned issues that might come up. The next piece I do is I begin designing my poster on paper. Some of you might be better at designing on the computer initially. I find it much easier to design on the paper. Just remember that your poster is an overview of your study or project. You're not putting every single detail on that poster. Most posters, as I said, are designed as one PowerPoint slide. Many services that print posters have free templates that you can download. That's very, very helpful. Posters are usually formatted in columns or text boxes with different headings. And the nice part, if you are able to download a template that already has headings, most of the time the font sizes are embedded right into those headings, and it makes your work much easier. So formatting your poster, some common section headings include introduction, methods, subjects, results, conclusions, implications, and references. Once again, please go back and look at the call for abstracts and look at any instructions that you receive from the organization. Some organizations will give you very specific section headings that you must follow. some other important considerations. Your poster has to be self-explanatory. The reader must be able to figure out how to progress through your poster. So although sometimes it's tempting to make all sorts of fancy backgrounds and to be exceptionally creative with the flow of your poster, please remember it needs to be self-explanatory. Somebody needs to walk up to the poster, look at it, read it, and be able to figure out how to follow the flow of your poster. And once again, you're presenting the highlight of your poster or study, not every detail. Now, Dr. Mitchell is going to talk about poster readability.
Thanks, Dr. Wexler. Your title should be readable from about 25 feet away. So usually a 72-point font is usually sufficient to achieve this. So make sure your title is big enough so it grabs people's attention. The body of the poster should have text that's readable from about 4 to 6 feet away. So when you're designing your poster, usually a 24-point font is sufficient to achieve this. Your poster should only have 1 to 2 different fonts. I mean, be very, and the sizes, make it very consistent. And you'll notice, especially if you work at an academic center, that most places have like a specific template that they like to use in a specific font. So that's important. And usually it's something simple like Times New Roman and Arial. So simple is best. This is not the time to bring out your Lucinda handwriting. It's Arial, something that looks clean and easy for your reader. Colors. Use a simple color scheme so as not to distract from your message. So what can be very distracting is if someone wants to use the rainbow, and I have seen that. So again, if you work for a specific academic center, they may have 2 colors, the school colors that they want you to use. If not, ask someone's opinion, use a librarian, and often it's nice to have sort of a little bit of a muted color as opposed to a really bright color. So try it out for yourself. And if it seems too alarming as you're looking at it on the screen as you're designing, it's going to be an alarming contrast for your attendees as they come by. So now you've done all this work, you're at a conference and you want to be excited because you only have a few minutes to create an experience. That's what it's really about. You're disseminating your information and you want to create an experience for the attendees. So you need to be available to answer questions and clarify areas. Someone comes up to you and asks you about your sample, you shouldn't have to turn and look at your poster. You should just have that off. What's my sample? What did I do? What are my results? How did it fill in the gaps? What's the implications for further research? You should just have like sort of, you know how we talk about an elevator speech? You should have like a 2-minute poster speech ready to fly. You need to know when to stand by your poster. And what we mean by that is that conferences, posters have a specific time. And you want to know, sometimes the poster might be up for 2 hours, but poster presenters are required to be there for a specific 1-hour time frame. So make sure you look at the conference directives when you submit to, and once it's accepted, to know when exactly that time is. That is not the time that you want to go look at other posters. So look in your program, make sure you're clear on that. Arrive 15 minutes early to set up your poster and stay until the end of the scheduled time. So again, sometimes certain conferences actually want you to set up your poster at the beginning of the day. So maybe it's an 8:30 setup, even though the poster viewing isn't until 12 noon. Even if your poster is set up, still arrive 15 minutes early, because you may want to take a moment or two and look at some other posters around where you're standing. But once you get rolling and the time comes and you don't have that free time now to look at other people's posters. Plus, you want to make sure it's all set up, that if you have business cards to give out, if you have handouts that you want to have available, that you are ready to fly at the moment the poster session starts. So stay with that poster, because if you walk around and start to look at other posters, you might miss the judges. You could miss someone who's looking for someone who's got your exact specialty or research in that area, that they're looking for a research partner or a postdoc. You don't want to miss those opportunities. So when you present your poster, like I just mentioned about bringing handouts, so what I mean by that is have a screenshot of your poster and just have single page handouts to give people. This is really useful because sometimes people are interested in your poster, but if there's several posters to view, they may not have time to spend as much time with you. So this gives them an opportunity to contact you later to get a deeper dive into what exactly you did. Another way you can achieve this is have a QR code on the handout that links to the poster, or on your poster, you can have a QR code in the right, usually I see it in the right lower hand corner, that links to the poster screenshot, and that's very effective. So I notice a lot of people like to use that, and it's very user friendly for the attendees. Bring business cards for those who visit your poster. And I would say go one step further, and on maybe 20 business cards on the back, write the title of your poster and say dementia specialist, or interested in a postdoc, or something that and then maybe add to it when you're having a conversation with someone. But that way it gives, people leave a conference, they might have 25 business cards, but this is a way that people are going to remember, this is the conversation, this is what you presented. So this key piece here is it's all about networking. So you want to network with other professionals who share similar academic interests. And that's why you want to stay with that poster, and why you wanted to come a little bit early to the poster, because typically posters, especially for larger conferences, are grouped in themes. So this is your opportunity to look and see what other researchers, scientists are doing in your area of interest. Finally, remove your poster from viewing per the directions. Now, you may not want to take your poster back to wherever you came from, but it's not, if they've asked you to remove it by a certain time, please be consistent with that and with the rules, and take down your poster. So a few other things with regard to caring for your poster. So we have a couple options here for posters. Paper poster. So if you're bringing a paper poster, you want to carry a strong poster tube, easier with one with a strap instead of one you have to keep holding on to. I had a colleague that left it in the Uber one time. So make sure when you're getting out of any type of vehicle, you have your poster with you. Do not check your poster as luggage. Again, very easy to get lost. You'll see now at conferences, more often I'm seeing more presenters opting for the cloth poster, because it's easier to pack the poster carefully in your luggage. And the materials they use now, when you unroll it, it doesn't have all those creases, and it looks quite nice on the poster board. So look into that as a consideration. When you first get to a conference, if possible, try to visit the room for the poster session when you arrive at a conference. Sometimes you might be in the corner, but don't feel daunted. That just means for you that you have to bring it even more, be even more excited about your poster, and make sure as you're visiting people or in different sessions, oh, hey, I have a poster at 12 noon today. I'm back in the corner, but I think you'd be interested in my research because we have similar interests. So that's part of a reason why too, you want to check that out. Bring your own push pins, tacks, tapes if needed, just in case. Now, most places do supply this, but if you're in a large conference where maybe there's 3 days worth of posters and you're on day 3, those supplies tend to dwindle after the first couple days. So that would be a reason why you may want to bring your own supplies. I also suggest, just in case, but as a backup, always make sure you have the final version of the poster file to the cloud for easy access. Possibly if you need to print out additional handouts, or if for some reason something happened to your poster, or you found like a major mistake last minute, it happens, but that would be one more reason. But mostly just because it's easier to print out some additional handouts if you forgot about that. And like Dr. Miller said at the beginning, this shouldn't be the end of your poster. You put a lot of work to it. So again, this is why you want to consider, what are you going to do with it next? So think about where you can set up your poster at your work site. So this is another audience that you can share your work with. So be excited, create the experience. And now we're going to present some resources and references, and I will send it back to Dr. Moccia.
Great. Wow. This was absolutely fabulous. I mean, I've heard it before. I know we practiced a little bit, but I love this presentation, what everybody outlined, all the pearls that we learned. And so now these are the resources and references. So now we're going to open up for question and answer time. So I'm going to stop sharing right now so you can see all of us here. And it looks like we do have a question in the chat right now in the Q&A. And we also have some other questions that some people had written in. So our first question is from Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Nice to hear from you. So what is the biggest mistake people make when creating a poster? So I'm not sure which one of our presenters would like to take this, but I'm going to let you decide, or each one of you can talk about this. What is the biggest mistake?
I'll start out. I think the biggest mistake is people try to put too much on their poster. So they try to fit absolutely everything on, and it makes the poster difficult to follow and very difficult to read.
I agree with that, Sharon. That was my first thought. And I would also add to that, sometimes people have spent a lot of time doing an extensive literature review. So they give us a lot of background. And typically when I'm looking at a poster, I don't want to know that much about your background. I want to know, what did you do and what your results were, and how did your research fill a gap in that area? So I would say really keep the background to a minimum, and you want to highlight those results. That's really what people want to know about. So I would say that would be my mistake that I see.
My other one I would add is what we just talked about, is you're looking at posters, you're really interested, and there's nobody there. So they wandered off, they went to get a cup of coffee, whatever, but it's really hard, and you just had a few minutes to get to this poster, or it was one you highlighted, and that can be very frustrating. Even if you're a judge trying to find them and you feel like, I can't score this person on presentation because they're not here.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Sarah, for posing that question. We have another question too. I have a very technical specific topic. How can I tailor my topic to clearly present my information to a variety of audiences? What do you say about that, Dr. Miller? Could you take that one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Probably my first thought is imagine yourself as the person viewing the poster. So what would you want them? So what would they be possibly considering when they go to this conference and want to look at posters? So kind of think of, if I was going in that position, what would I want on a poster? And as we've mentioned, I want to see what you've done, how you did it, what happened, and maybe some of the process along with that. So this is the kind of and then the other thing is, how could I use this information? So kind of think of what conference this is, who's coming to it, and what would be some of the most useful and practical information they might want to pull out of what you have learned or what you want to share. So that would be one of the things I would say Again, keep your poster focused, and also, share the handout, use that QR code, because you do have a lot. If you've got extra information, use that QR code, or, maybe an additional handout that people can go back and look at. So those are probably the main points. Others can add a little bit more.
Can I just add something to something that Dr. Miller said? Know your audience. If I'm at a geriatric conference, I do not need to know the stats, nor does anybody else in the room, about older adults in the United States, the number of people over age 85. I always think like, okay, this audience knows that. But I'll give an example. I had to give a presentation on senior mobility to the New Jersey Transit and engineers, and they were urban planners. And my first discussion point was about social determinants of health. Now, if I were talking to nurses, they know that.
Mhm.
These people didn't. So really, when you're thinking of technical issues, who are you talking to? So I'm really glad you highlighted that, Joanne. I just thought of that.
Wonderful. We have another question. What can you say is the best tool to show for generating graphs or visual depictions of what you want to show on your poster? What do some of you use or you suggest?
Well, actually, for some of the posters I've developed, usually you're working with that single PowerPoint slide. And in PowerPoint, there are some tools on the top bar that you can use to make graphs and diagrams and sometimes figures. But also Excel, your data is probably in Excel. That has multiple tools that can make some really fabulous charts, diagrams, etc. If you're working with a statistician, talk to that statistician about what you want to say to your audience and have them develop a diagram table. These are very important, and it's just so much easier for your viewer to look at these diagrams, figures, or tables that you might have, graphs, to get an idea of what your results, so they don't have to read a lot. They can see that picture. That graph speaks much more than all the text that you can put in there. So this is very, very much thing to consider as you're working on it. But use some consultants, or your statisticians have been wonderful with this.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Can I
We
add
also
one quick thing?
go ahead,
Because
Dr.
graphs,
Mitchell.
and so also consider the colors you use, and make sure the
Yes.
key is clear, that
Correct.
your attendee can quickly denote what each color represents. So you want to make sure that key is there, and that there's enough of a distinction. Sometimes if people just use certain hues of blue, it can be a little difficult to determine what the actual results are. So
I'd also like to add, the same way when I was speaking and my colleagues were speaking, we talked about the poster highlighting key points of your study. When you're looking at graphs or tables, remember that as well. Sometimes I see graphs or tables on posters that have too much information. So for example, if you were looking, 80% of your sample is community dwelling, 10% is long-term care, and then 1% is in assisted living, 1% lives, with a spouse or a child or whatever it is. Sometimes, especially for a poster, you want to highlight the cells, the particular cells that have large numbers, and perhaps you want to group the rest together under other, so that you have a very clear graph or clear table that calls you to the real important information. So with everything with a poster, it's key material.
Perfect. We also have a question from Joan Carpenter. Hi, Joan. Wish I could see you. How much time should a first-time presenter allow for drafting and review of a poster? Because we heard earlier too about setting up a schedule. So how much time should a first-time presenter allow for drafting and review of a poster?
I think it depends on, is it the first poster they've done, or is it the first project that they've done? I find particularly with my students, if it's the first EBP project or first research project they've done, then I always have them build in extra time, because it's really getting familiar, owning the project. Figuring out what the most important pieces of it are. And again, then, so I have them add in that extra time in addition to drafting the poster. I think it also depends how, I don't want to say artistic, but how visual you are. Very often, we learn in different modalities. Some of us are innately visual learners and able to express ourselves visually. I don't think I have an artistic bone in my whole body. So when I first started doing posters, and I've done many for many years, it took me a while. It took me extra time to really be able to express myself visually. So I don't think that there's a finite amount of time. I think it really is very dependent on the individual. And do you, or Joanne, do you have a thought on specific amounts of time?
I would say at least several weeks. I mean, even a month or two ahead of time, just to start the process. If you're a beginner, look at other posters, talk to other students or faculty, maybe ask some people for some examples or some templates. So you can spend a few days just kind of quizzing people and looking at things, so that, and then just go into PowerPoint and look at some of the templates, see which one kind of strikes you as fitting you and your project. And then you're going to need some time to just play with PowerPoint, which is the one I've always used for that one slide. So you look at it, and you kind of make a draft on paper. So you'll need that. You'll kind of look at it, see how PowerPoint works. And then I would say, once I kind of have something up in my slide, I start finding somebody to look at it. So I have to give them a day or two to kind of look at it, come into my office or whatever, here, look at this. And then, I'm making revisions, look back again. But I want to end up with somebody who does not know my project looking at my slide. I always use my husband, and he was really good with visual and graphs, but he wasn't a nurse. So if he could understand what I was saying, then I knew I had a pretty good poster that way, so that somebody could just look at this, and I had him tell me, what am I saying? And then if he could kind of come back with what I thought I said, I felt pretty good about my poster. But yeah, use people, not always your friends, to kind of be a little critical with that poster. It does make for a stronger presentation then.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. We also have a statement in here from Rachel Santos. This is a great one too. I love QR codes, but how do I know how to create one? How do I do that?
So I just put in a YouTube video, but it's not that hard. I know I've done it a few times, and I've made it work. So yeah. And now, people used to have, you used to have the QR scanner, but now pretty much everybody's phone can just capture it so easily. But Rachel, I would say, so great question, and I'm glad you asked it. I would just say, look at a video. I'm one of those, I watch a video, like 30 seconds. Okay, what's the next move? And this is specific to doing it, I believe, like in PowerPoint. So try that.
Wonderful. And I heard you also say, Dr. Mitchell, that usually on a poster, you see it in the lower right-hand corner. Usually people put their QR codes there, and usually that's for their references, right? We see that.
See that for references, and sometimes people do that too, just as a if you want a snapshot, of the poster, instead of here's one more paper to carry from a conference. So
Excellent, excellent. And Solange Marcel, and I'm sorry if I slaughtered your first name, but based on your expertise, when the PDF is sent out, would it be possible for a couple or 3 posters of exemplar quality be sent as an example? We can definitely look at that. So that we can send out, because I'm sure, you know, many of us that are presenting today have seen exemplar posters, that we can do that.
Sometimes GAPNA has those posted after the conferences. They always have the posters up, so you might want to go on the website or into the Pro Library and see if you can see some posters there from last year's conference or previous.
Thank you. That's an excellent suggestion. So I think we're good. We're at 8:35. I do see here, is there a recording of the abstract webinar you did previously, or a copy of the slides to be able to review? Yes, that we did record our previous top of the hour topic. That should be out there. I'm not sure if that's on the online library. I don't know. I know Celeste is on the call with us. If she knows where that is posted right now.
That is on GAPNA's YouTube channel. And we can also include a link to that when we send out the follow-up email with the slides. We can include a link to that as well.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very
Michelle,
much.
there was also another question I heard, you know, from my students very often is how do I acknowledge people on the poster? Often you have a lot of people involved with your poster. Sometimes many, you can only put a few titles. You want to always, if you're a student or always put your advisor on there with that, but you might want to put your site facilitator or your preceptor, whatever would be appropriate, but of course your name too. But you know, keep it to not more than 3 names on there. It gets a little overwhelming. You can use an acknowledgement box at the bottom if you want to acknowledge your statistician or some of the people at your clinical site or something like that. So that's a nice way to give them credit on your poster, but you can't overwhelm and put 6 different titles up there for the poster. So, you know, kind of keep it to 3-ish is about right.
Just going back to Solange's question though, like, so I know we have some examples where maybe somebody has 3 people, but they're from 2 different institutions. So there's a real concise way. That's an area where you might use that 3rd font, right? We said the titles in 72 font, most of your posters in 24, and then that the people where they're from might be like in 18 or 20 font, like, but and typically you'll see people typically use a superscript like a number 1 and number 2. But thank you, Joanne, for bringing that up, Dr. Miller, because when I'm at a poster and I see 1 name, it's a student, and I'm like, you did this all by yourself? No committee, nobody. So you definitely want to make sure that you acknowledge those who have worked with you.
Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat or the Q&A. So I want to thank everybody for joining us for top of the hour research topic, create a winning poster. And also we'd like to nudge you a little bit because we're all from the research committee. Please consider joining our research committee. We're a lot of fun. We're thinking about doing these top of the hour topics going forward. We're doing some other creative things, and you can find us on the GAPNA Exchange listed under committees. So thank you again for joining us tonight. We appreciate it. We hope this was helpful. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.